What if one of YouTube's most explosive controversies wasn't entirely real, but a performance, carefully staged to manipulate millions? In the glitzy, high-calorie world of mukbang content, STEPHANIE SOO and Nikocado Avocado weren't just creators. They were sensations. Stephanie, with her calming voice and true crime storytelling, offered a stark contrast to Nikocado's chaotic, theatrical energy. When these two forces came together in 2019 for a collaboration, fans expected fireworks, but not the kind that would leave lasting scars across the YouTube community. What happened between them became one of the most emotionally charged conflicts in influencer history. Accusations of manipulation, betrayal, and mental distress exploded across social media. Stephanie's video, "Why I Am Scared of Nikocado Avocado," wasn't just viral, it was seismic. And the fallout? It changed careers, friendships, and fan allegiances. But years later, Nikocado is back with a new video. He says he's finally ready to tell the full story, and what he reveals reframes the entire drama, with shocking claims that Stephanie misused a movement meant to support real trauma survivors, and that their feud may have been more about views than victims. So what really happened? Let's break it down. In December 2019, Stephanie and Nick joined forces for what should have been a fun mukbang collab with fellow creator Zach Choi. But behind the scenes, things weren't smooth. According to Stephanie, Nick pressured her to speak on old drama involving another YouTuber, Veronica Wang, a subject she had no interest in revisiting. She later said she felt cornered, manipulated, and emotionally unsafe. That night, she canceled a planned follow-up shoot, citing anxiety and distress. What followed was a barrage of messages from Nick, which Stephanie claimed were overwhelming and invasive, especially as she was battling panic attacks. She also accused him of taking unauthorized photos inside her home, including shots of her security system. This, she said, was a shocking breach of trust. On December 21st, 2019, Stephanie released her now legendary video. In it, she detailed the events from her perspective, painting Nick as a manipulative figure who disregarded her boundaries, invaded her space, and created an environment of fear. The video struck a chord: 17 million views, massive creator support, and a public that largely rallied behind her. But Nick wasn't staying silent. He released his own response, denying many of Stephanie's claims. He said she gave him permission to take photos, that their conversations were collaborative, and that she exaggerated her distress for dramatic effect. He accused her of chasing clout and weaponizing the drama to boost her brand. The community split. Some stayed loyal to Stephanie, others began to question her narrative. Then, in 2021, came the twist no one saw coming. In an interview with Mel magazine, Nick claimed the feud had been orchestrated. He said he and Stephanie had agreed, either explicitly or implicitly, that the drama would help both their careers. "We both knew this would be the best thing for our brands," he said. He even described the experience as him learning how to use conflict as currency. This changed everything. Was the pain real? Were the tears strategic? Fans were left reeling. If the feud was planned, how much of it could be trusted? Fast forward to 2025. Nick releases a new 30-plus minute video, revisiting the drama with a surprisingly mature tone. He apologizes, not in a performative way, but in detail. He admits he was emotionally immature, too invested in getting juicy content, and didn't handle the fallout with professionalism. He says he regrets pushing Stephanie to gossip, reacting poorly to her withdrawal, and venting on social media. He owns his faults. But then he flips the lens. Nick accuses Stephanie of something far more insidious: misusing the language and imagery of the Me Too movement to paint him as something he wasn't. He highlights her choice to include footage of herself trembling on a couch, distressed and vulnerable, just seconds into her original video. And most viewers, unfamiliar with either creator, made the immediate assumption Nick was the man behind the fear. Only later, 30 minutes in, did Stephanie clarify that the man in the footage wasn't Nick. Nick says this was no accident. According to him, Stephanie crafted a narrative that leaned on the emotional power of the Me Too movement without ever making direct claims. She let implication do the work. She used phrases like "in and out of sleep," which Nick later mocked and now regrets, but insists was never meant to reference trauma. He says he was mocking an excuse, not a survivor. And yet, the damage was done. Viewers interpreted the phrase as Nick mocking Stephanie's past. Nick claims this wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a manipulation. He then turns to Stephanie's demeanor in their collab. He plays footage showing her laughing, eating, seemingly at ease. He asks if she was in utter distress. Why did none of that show up during filming? He points to edited clips that were removed in her video, moments that, if included, would have painted a different picture. Was Stephanie performing? Nick thinks so. He says the trembling voice, the on-camera tears, the sudden tone shifts, all felt scripted, calculated. A masterclass in emotional storytelling, with him as the villain. Then came the house photos. Stephanie claimed Nick took pictures of her home and security system without her knowing. Nick insists the photos were taken during a house tour, one she led. He says he was inspired by her decor and was discussing renovations with his partner via FaceTime. He admits he continued taking photos when she left the room briefly, which he now sees was presumptuous, but not malicious. So who do we believe? Nick's new video has shifted public opinion dramatically. Comments poured in from fans who once sided with Stephanie, now saying they feel misled. They praised Nick for his accountability, his vulnerability, and for presenting what they saw as proof of manipulation. But others remain skeptical. They point out that Nick is a known provocateur, someone who thrives on chaos and controversy, that he admitted the drama boosted his views, and that this new video might just be another chapter in the same book. So where does that leave us? The truth is likely complicated. Maybe Stephanie did feel afraid. Maybe Nick did act out of line. Maybe both exploited the moment for clout and now regret what it turned into. But one thing is clear, in the age of content, emotion and performance are often indistinguishable. Nick ends his video with a final apology to Stephanie, hoping to put the past behind him, but he also calls on her to take accountability, not just for how she felt, but for how she framed their fallout. Because when real trauma becomes content, the lines between villain and victim get dangerously blurry. What do you think? Did Stephanie go too far? Or is Nick just rewriting history to save face? Let us know in the comments. And remember, sometimes the real story isn't what you see on screen, it's what's left out. The ripple effects of the Stephanie-Nick fallout went far beyond the original videos. Back in 2020, just months after their drama exploded, a wave of YouTubers and commentary channels began dissecting every frame, every screenshot, every tweet. Entire essays were uploaded on Reddit. Some claimed Stephanie had been genuinely traumatized. Others accused her of emotional manipulation. Meanwhile, Nick leaned into his role as the villain of YouTube, uploading erratic mukbangs, tearful rants, and chaotic spectacles that blurred the line between satire and self-destruction. Stephanie, on the other hand, shifted away from mukbang content entirely. She leaned into her true crime podcasting, focusing more on long-form storytelling and pulling in a new audience, one that, for a time, knew little about the Nikocado controversy. Her transformation was widely praised. She matured, fans said. She got away from the toxicity. But now, with Nick's resurfaced video, that clean image has started to crack. Comments on the 2025 video are full of disillusioned fans. One viewer wrote, "I've been a day one subscriber to Stephanie. I believed her. But now, I don't know, the clips Nick showed changed everything." Another said, "I'm not saying she lied about everything, but she definitely framed him in a way that made things seem darker than they were." And this is where it gets deeper. What happens when audiences realize that the people they trust to tell raw, emotional stories might be editing the narrative behind the scenes? What happens when creators use the language of activism, Me Too, trauma, mental health, as tools in personal feuds? It's a question many are now asking. Nick's assertion that Stephanie co-opted a movement struck a nerve with viewers who have seen real survivors struggle to be heard. His argument, if you weaponize those emotions for content, you dilute the power of the stories that truly need to be told. But let's not forget, Nick isn't just an innocent bystander here. His history of playing the villain, of dramatizing mundane events, and of bending the truth for engagement is well documented. In fact, many believe that his entire online persona is a form of performance art, one that mixes reality and fiction so seamlessly that even he may not always know where one ends and the other begins. So now, viewers are caught in a new kind of drama, not between two creators, but between reality and perception. Let's take a step back and ask, why did this drama capture the internet's attention so fiercely? It wasn't just about gossip or behind-the-scenes beef. It tapped into something deeper, the parasocial relationship between viewer and creator. Stephanie was the comforting voice in our headphones, the calm presence during late-night anxiety. Nick was the chaotic counterpart, the YouTuber we loved to hate and couldn't stop watching. When drama broke between them, it felt personal. It felt real. And maybe that's why it hurts so much now. Because if even this was part performance, what else is? This isn't the first time influencer drama has blurred the line between truth and fiction. From James Charles and Tati Westbrook's legendary feud to Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star's cancellation, YouTube is full of moments where creators used real emotion to fuel public spectacle. But the Stephanie-Nick situation stands out because it involved such emotionally loaded themes: mental health, trauma, and trust. Nick's 2025 video has reopened that wound, and whether you side with him or not, it's hard to deny that his message has sparked serious debate. What is ethical storytelling on YouTube? Where is the line between dramatization and exploitation? Nick ends his video not just with an apology, but with a challenge. He urges viewers, Rodriguez and fellow creators, to be more honest about their intentions, to stop performing pain for profit, to draw a line between storytelling and manipulation, And while Stephanie has not responded to Nick's new video at the time of this script, the pressure is mounting. Some fans are demanding clarity, others are calling for her to step away from the platform entirely. But perhaps the most haunting part of all this is the realization that we may never get the full truth. In the end, this isn't just a story about two influencers. It's a story about the evolution of digital authenticity, about how social media rewards the most dramatic, the most vulnerable, the most outrageous version of ourselves, and about how, in the pursuit of views and virality, we sometimes lose sight of the people behind the personas. Because in a world where everything is content, even pain can be monetized. So next time you click on a tearful apology or a truth-exposed video, ask yourself, what are you really watching? And more importantly, who is benefiting from the story being told? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more untold stories coming soon. What makes this drama so compelling and disturbing is that it touches something raw in all of us. Not just the betrayal of a creator we believed in, but the betrayal of our own instincts. We want to believe we can tell when someone is hurting. We want to think we can spot a lie. But the Stephanie-Nick fallout blurred those lines so effectively that even now, years later, we're still debating what was real. Let's look at how each of their careers evolved post-drama. Stephanie leaned hard into podcasting. Her channel, Rotten Mango, a mix of crime storytelling and psychology, saw a surge in popularity. For many fans, it was a sign of maturity, a shift away from the performative chaos of mukbang YouTube. She branded herself as thoughtful, empathetic, and emotionally intelligent. But Nick's video pulls that image into question. If the person who cried on camera was also the person who allegedly gossiped behind the scenes and exaggerated timelines, then what does that say about the real Stephanie? And more importantly, what does it say about the version she gave her fans? Meanwhile, Nick's transformation has been even more complex. At first, he doubled down on being the villain. Rage-filled mukbangs, bizarre thumbnails, crying while eating fast food. Many assumed it was a parody, performance art meant to comment on the absurdity of YouTube culture. But as his behavior grew more extreme, fans started to worry. Was this a bit, or was Nick unraveling for real? Ironically, this is what makes him such an effective narrator now. He's already been the bad guy. There's no reputation to protect, no image to preserve. When he apologizes, it feels less like damage control and more like emotional release. And in this latest video, when he admits he was immature, childish, unprofessional, it comes across as painfully honest. That's what makes his accusations so powerful. He doesn't try to excuse himself, he owns it. But then he shifts the spotlight to Stephanie and invites the audience to reevaluate everything we thought we knew. It's a clever tactic, and it's working. Across Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit, the conversation has reignited. Clips from Stephanie's old videos are being reanalyzed. Threads are popping up with timestamps, tone breakdowns, and side-by-side comparisons of her behavior. One viral TikTok even claims to expose the editing tricks used to generate sympathy. But not everyone is convinced. Some argue that Nick, no matter how well-spoken, is still a provocateur, that his entire channel thrives on creating chaos, that this video, however mature it seems, is just another calculated step in keeping his name in the algorithm. And they may be right, because at the end of the day, YouTube isn't a courtroom, it's an attention economy. The truth doesn't always matter, but the story does. That's why creators keep pushing the line. More emotion, more drama, more blurred boundaries between who they are and who they pretend to be, because vulnerability sells, victimhood sells, redemption sells. And in the case of Stephanie and Nick, all three were wrapped into one viral package. So what have we learned? First, that even creators we trust can curate their pain to make it more palatable, more profitable. Second, that fans are quicker to forgive when someone admits they were wrong, even if they're still throwing shade. And third, that the most dangerous narratives are the ones that mix just enough truth with performance to keep us guessing. In 2019, Stephanie told us she was scared of Nick. In 2025, Nick is telling us we should be skeptical of Stephanie. Both stories were gripping, both were emotional, and both were massively successful. But maybe the real lesson here isn't about who was right or wrong. Maybe it's about how YouTube has trained all of us, creators and viewers alike, to consume pain as content, to reward emotional manipulation with views, and to confuse storytelling with honesty. Because when everyone's performing, who's left to tell the truth? Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments, and subscribe if you want more deep dives into the stories behind the stories. Until next time, stay curious. Let's zoom out for a moment and ask the bigger question. What does this controversy reveal about the state of YouTube today? The Stephanie-Nick situation is no longer just an isolated drama. It's become a case study in the psychology of digital storytelling. On platforms like YouTube, Emotional appeal isn't just effective, it's currency. Content creators are rewarded for relatability, vulnerability, and drama, especially when it's wrapped in personal pain. That's not inherently a bad thing. Storytelling is powerful. But when stories start to use the language of trauma, movements like Me Too, survivor narratives, and mental health disclosures, it becomes crucial to ask, are we honoring those experiences or exploiting them? Nick's accusations against Stephanie, whether fully valid or not, have sparked a broader debate, not just about who lied or exaggerated, but about how platforms and audiences incentivize that very behavior. Because let's be honest, if Stephanie's original video hadn't opened with emotional music, security footage, and trembling narration, would it have gone viral? Would it have received 17 million views? Would people have paid attention? And more importantly, would anyone have cared? We've trained ourselves to respond to emotional cues like music, voice cracks, and visual framing. These are the techniques that filmmakers and advertisers have used for decades. But now, influencers are using them too, on vlogs, apology videos, and confessions. And because these videos feel raw and unscripted, we mistake them for truth. The truth? Most of them are edited with the same level of precision as a Hollywood trailer. This doesn't make creators bad people, but it does make them skilled at shaping perception. And that's why this story matters, because Nick, for all his flaws, is pulling back the curtain. He's showing how easy it is to become a villain with a few well-placed edits, how words can be reframed, how silence can be manipulated, how reality becomes a script. And that should concern all of us, not just as fans, but as participants in a culture that blurs fiction and fact for views. We also need to talk about YouTube's algorithm. The platform thrives on engagement, especially outrage. The more polarizing the content, the more it's shared. Stephanie's video wasn't just popular because of what she said. It was popular because of how divisive it was. People watched it multiple times. They paused, they commented, they sent it to friends, all signals that boosted it in the algorithm. And now, years later, Nick is doing the same, leveraging controversy to get back in the conversation. So what's the lesson here? If the internet rewards chaos, the smartest creators will learn to manufacture it. And that's what's so dangerous. Not that creators lie, but that they're incentivized to make their content emotionally provocative, even when it means distorting the truth. It's no longer enough to just be honest. You have to be compelling. And that's a slippery slope. Stephanie may have felt genuinely uncomfortable. Nick may have been genuinely remorseful. But once those emotions enter the content machine, they become assets, edited, amplified, and monetized. And once that happens, then the line between reality and narrative disappears. That's why stories like this resonate so deeply, because they force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that our favorite creators are just as capable of manipulation as any media company, and we, the audience, are just as easily manipulated. The Stephanie-Nick fallout is about more than two people, and that's what's so dangerous. Not that creators lie, but that they're incentivized to make their content emotionally provocative, even when it means distorting the truth. It's no longer enough to just be honest. You have to be compelling, and that's a slippery slope. Stephanie may have felt genuinely uncomfortable. Nick may have been genuinely remorseful, but once those emotions enter the content machine, they become assets, edited, amplified, and monetized. And once that happens, the line between reality and narrative disappears. That's why stories like this resonate so deeply, because they force us to confront the uncomfortable truth that our favorite creators are just as capable of manipulation as any media company. And we, the audience, are just as easily manipulated. The Stephanie-Nick fallout is about more than two people.